So in the last podcast, I discussed bMoor being a platform which provides millennials of African descent with the tools to pass down wealth to the generation which follow them. And I went on to expand the definition of wealth not just to include financial assets, but also cultural assets too. With that being said, I'm sure that some of you will be familiar with, financial assets such as property, equity in companies, in the form of shares, money, etc. But maybe a little obscure when it comes to the cultural asset side of things. So to best explain that, let me pull you into a previous experience of mine. But before I do this, let me give a special shout out to Ken Okorofor, who goes into cultural assets in more depth on his platform, The Humble Penny, which you can find on YouTube and alongside other streaming services too. A few years ago, I was with a Jewish lady, not Hasidic, but I guess, just your normal everyday person. Her father, who's still alive at the time of recording, emigrated to the UK as a child alongside his family after Hitler's Germany invaded and seized his native Czechoslovakia, which today is known as the Czech Republic. And once settled in the UK, they were able to continue their family business and rebuild their wine distribution company. This was at a time when wine was becoming accessible to the mainstream population and was no longer seen as a drink solely for the upper classes. This meant big business and brought heavy financial rewards, a legacy which still exists in their family today. Be as that may, and the success his family garnered in this foreign land, my ex's father rescinded his Jewish ties as a defense mechanism, so to speak, to the social stigma which resulted in many of his loved ones being slain at the hands of the Nazis. And because of this, never reared his children in a strict Jewish fashion. In fact, his children were encouraged not to, as a means of social survival. Nonetheless, it was abundantly clear to me that through her upbringing, that she would be privy to cultural collateral that up until that point I never would have had access to. One of these things was money and its many uses, and it wasn't because she took a course or particularly had an interest in it, but because these were simple lessons which were passed down to her as a child. Lessons which she probably took for granted simply because that was all she knew. But nonetheless, these very lessons set her up in a strong financial position, even up until this day. However, my understanding was yet to be peaked and reach the next level on our trip to New York. So she invites me to her cousin's wedding, which was in Manhattan. The procession itself was beautiful. The venue, the music, the cocktails, you name it. Everything was well planned out. But this, funnily enough, wasn't my biggest takeaway. My biggest takeaway from the wedding came at the ceremonial portion of it. So this was before all the fireworks and festivities. And this was in regard to the rabbi and his reading from the scriptures. Please consider that this was a few years back, so my memory on it is a little fuzzy, but to paraphrase, it was along the lines of, we will not be poor, we will aspire for richness and help our brethren who are in need. We will always do good by our community. And bearing witness to this really caught my attention, more so than anything because I was raised Catholic. I never had words in any mass that I went to come across so powerful and so actionable from a spiritual teacher. In fact, I had mostly experienced the opposite. But little did I know the role in which this experience would actually play in my life later on down the line. So I go to African history class in London, conducted by Robin Walker, who's a leading figure in black studies. And there was a particular class concerning Judaism and it originally being birthed out of Africa. And what was to follow would be one of the biggest revelations of my life. So when the end of the class was approaching and Robin was taking questions, I asked, what is it about the Jews and the mystique which surrounds them? Which was, a burning question, at least to me, because I've always lived in Stamford Hill. Well, close to Stamford Hill, which is an area heavily, which is, densely populated people from the Jewish community, especially Hasidic Jews. And Robin's response was, like the ancient Egyptians, the Jews have been able to hold onto their culture across thousands and thousands of years, which is where the mystique surrounding their culture comes from, because only few civilizations in recorded history have been able to do that. Going on to say that the reason why they were able to do that, like the Egyptians, was because their culture systematically practiced something known as the success philosophy. This is where their culture demands that they perpetuate very specific rituals and routines which gears its inhabitants not just to survive but to thrive. And as soon as he said that, I thought immediately back to what the rabbi was saying in the ceremony of that wedding, which in the moment, the link between our thoughts and what it is we're able to achieve became abundantly clear. And what our culture feeds to us from our youth regarding our potential and expectations ties almost directly to what it is we become. Which brings me on to a religious sect known as the Jesuits, who routinely boast, "Give me a child in their first 7 years and I'll tell you who they become when they grow up." Which is why when children go to private schools like Eton and so forth, which preaches, supremacy, social entitlement, they're already being geared towards being in positions of control and power. Which is why you find most politicians and CEOs from Fortune 500 companies sharing this type of background, whereas the children who's had more of a mainstream upbringing, i.e. public schools, are shaped to be their subordinates. And this brought me to my childhood, because I can directly attribute things which I was told as a child, which would have blatantly fed into who I've become today, positive and negative. And this shows what we plant into the minds of our children start off as little seeds, but germinate and mature throughout the course of our lives. Which is why, in order to reverse any cultural negativity, we need to program our mind and the principles our culture is founded on. And the easiest and quickest way to do this is to make daily affirmations. And this isn't wishful thinking, but findings based on concrete science. I'm sure you're aware that our minds are divided into at least two parts: the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. The conscious mind is what we can control, and the part of our mind in which we're most aware of, as it documents our real-time experiences and allows us to operate within those experiences accordingly. Whereas on the other hand, our unconscious mind is a library of all our experiences, past and present, which have been fed into it by the conscious mind. And from this collection of experiences, formulates our beliefs, our standards, our expectations, our sense of self-worth, our understanding of the world, etc. It is important to note that our unconscious mind is far more powerful than the conscious mind, but still relies on it to provide the data, which in this case is our experiences, to form its understanding of the world. And the belief is further reinforced the more frequently exposed to the experiences which validates it. So for instance, if you're predominantly always having negative experiences, then your unconscious mind is always going to be for the most part anyway geared towards negativity, and that's what you end up attracting. And the opposite holds true for positive experiences also, which is why daily affirmations are so important. Simply because it's our way of shaping our unconscious mind to the person in which we aspire to be. So an affirmation, if you're not aware, is just something, along the lines of telling yourself you're something every single day and repeating it indefinitely. So for instance, if you want to be a footballer and you want to score 30 goals, something in which you could do is every morning you wake up, you can be like, by the end of the season, I'm going to score 30. I've already scored 30 goals. and do the same before you go to sleep as well. But the trick is to tell your unconscious that you're already doing it instead of saying that you're gonna do it. And this way, when you're confronted with your desire, you already expect it and feel deserving of it, which is important, because otherwise you'll descend into patterns of self-sabotage that repel the very things you thought you wanted away. This happens in relationships, where someone is more comfortable with dysfunctional partners rather than functional ones. And so when they're in situations where there is someone who treats them good, they'll partake in actions of self-sabotage, which ends up destroying it, simply because they can't afford to accept happiness, as they're always waiting for the rug to be pulled under their feet. People partake in self-sabotage of money. You see lottery ticket winners, athletes who amass, great sums of money, but lose it within, just a few years of receiving it. Another example is people saying that, they want to put money towards a house, but every single month, they're spending their money on stuff in which they don't really need, and self-sabotage is rampant, when there is a misalignment with your conscious mind, i.e. what you desire, and your unconscious mind with what you expect. And doing daily affirmations is one of the best ways to help actually plug that gap. And it's important for you to know that this is very, very powerful stuff. And the philosophy in which we've kind of gone through today, creates the spine and the foundation for very iconic books, such as Think and Grow Rich, the Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, the Science of Getting Rich, and other books of that nature as well. Because you need to know that, nothing separates you from a Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates, apart from what you think of yourself and what you think of the world around you. Because the same way you can have a success philosophy, you can also have a philosophy founded on unsuccess. And it was from that time at the Jewish ceremony, and thinking back to my experiences as a child, which were fed to me by, family members and peers, that a lot of times there were cultural norms and expectations which led to the detriment of myself, my family, and just our community as a whole. Whether it was anytime you see, a black guy driving a flashy car, you immediately expecting that they're a drug dealer, or that, Caribbeans and Africans of the diaspora can't get along, or Jamaican men always, leave their children or upon having them, or being a man that is right having a long list of, sexual partners and being unfaithful, and, a host of other things which frame us in a negative light to others, but most importantly, to ourselves. I just want to, before I leave, I just want to kind of just stress the importance of creating a culture which is founded on, replicating principles of success, of community, of nation building, amongst, people of our community. When I kind of think back to when I'm kind of just thinking of the subject matter that, the topics that I'm looking to cover in the weeks, months, and even years ahead, this one here is probably gonna be the most important, simply because this sets the foundation, this sets the blueprint for everything else that will be built upon it. So if this is something which hasn't fully digested, I really advise to just kind of go back to it and start again, and just to kind of keep on reaffirming yourself with the understanding of the importance of something which in most cases, would be regarded as insignificant. But this is the seed, of everything, what it is that we want for ourselves and expect for ourselves, and understanding the relationship between those two forces, and doing your best to align those two forces, as much as you possibly can, So I'm going to conclude there, but before you leave, please download the resource, the free ebook, which goes into how to which gives you numerous examples of ways in which you can make passive income. These are proven steps in which thousands upon thousands, if not millions, of people use, which has brought success to their lives, as far as financial success is concerned. And yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there. I look forward to catching up with you on the next one, and up until that point, look after yourself and take care.